14 runs. The offense was obviously rolling, but let's not forget of what Tanner Houck did. Another spectacular outing from him. He is turning into a true ace. Can't forget about the kid Westbrook. First big league homer. Looks like he's going to get that ball back. What a special moment for him.
Red Sox blew out the White Sox last night. At one point during the game, I actually looked between, because I was watching the Celtics last night. I sort of had one eye on the Red Sox. By then, they were up like 8-0 or something like that. I think I made some sort of crack that Boston teams were winning by a combined 32 points last night, or 32 at one stage last night. In any case, we're going to open up the phone lines right away. 617-779-0985. Here on the Baseball Hour, it is a round table Friday. Except the table's really not that round. It's more like Tyler Milliken and I sitting apart.
Maz, those weren't the comments a few seconds ago, if I was listening correctly.
Oh, you heard those?
I did hear those.
So Tyler and I are actually sitting across from one another. Matt McCarthy, unable to be here tonight. And with Matt, I can tell you with all certainty, it's always a good reason when he's not here.
Miss you, McCarthy.
So 617-779-0985. I'm sorry, I cannot talk about a victory over the Chicago White Sox. I can't do it.
Nobody can. Can we be real?
Can I just say that, and we'll get to some of this later, that is a bad baseball team. Holy crap. I think I can name one guy on the team.
It's really embarrassing, but that's what you get when you're talking about the team with the worst OPS in all of baseball and the second worst ERA. They suck at everything.
Luis Robert is the only, and he's having a crap year.
Garrett Crochet, they're going to face him, I believe, tomorrow.
Tonight, isn't it?
Is it tonight? It might be tonight.
I think it's tonight. This might be the only game the White Sox have a chance to win. So, and let me just say quickly about the White Sox. That if the Red Sox don't win at least 3 games in this series, it's a major fail. And they should win 4. Tonight's kind of iffy just because of the pitching matchup. But honestly, we're going to begin tonight with John Henry's comments to the Financial Times, which are getting a lot of attention online. And let me just say quickly that I'm going to have, many of you have not read this story. So I'm going to have to read parts of it to you, but I know that Milliken has some strong thoughts, as do I. I do not, by the way, disagree with everything the Red Sox say. Okay, there are some things I do think the Red Sox have a point on. Okay, but in this story, as is often the case when John Henry speaks, or when anybody from the Red Sox speaks, I made a comment about this the other day, that it always feels, Tyler, like they are saying something and then clarifying their remarks a week later. Most recently, it was Sam Kennedy, who a week ago said, if anything, we've underperformed. Then had to go on Nesson a couple of days ago and basically clarify the remarks.
Alex Cora put it perfectly. Sam's kind of all over the place. It's not just Sam, it's everybody, except John Henry just doesn't speak. But when he does, this is the result we get. Now,
I've said this before, and I believe it. If I were John Henry, I wouldn't talk. I wouldn't. And I've said this to Felger on Felger and Maz. People have heard me say it, I think. I just wouldn't do interviews. He's too honest. He says the truth. And it often irritates people because they don't want to hear it, even though it is the truth. And the other thing is, and I say this with all respect to Henry, whom, I first met 20 years ago or what have you. I wouldn't describe our relationship as close, but I would say it's cordial. And he is different. He's an extremely intelligent guy. He's not telegenic. So to do interviews doesn't serve him. Okay, it doesn't serve him. So I think they're better off saying nothing. People say, can you believe the owner doesn't face the music? Yeah, I can. I can, especially when talking only hurts the cause for them. But go ahead.
For me personally, when it came to John Henry speaking, I do agree. I think he steps in it way, just about every single time he speaks now. And I go back to those comments, really around the Mookie Betts trade and around that time when he was kind of painting the picture and explaining what the luxury tax were they were. And when you looked at the landscape of baseball at that time, people were all underrating or operating under that kind of luxury tax structure where it was, hey, we go over for 2 years, you get back underneath. What scared me so much about these comments specifically was just the way he was framing just fans and media and almost speaking to them like they're stupid, like they're pushing these thoughts that, hey, sell everything for the future and try to win right now. I don't think anyone's been in that stratosphere where we've talked about where the state of the roster has been and how mediocre it is. And all reality, their World Series aspirations in a lot of these seasons, I think where that hurts me more than anything is when you look at the actions the last couple years. We haven't been asking for you to sell the future. We've just been asking you to go as far as you can without selling the future, and they have not done that on multiple occasions since 2021. And there's clear evidence, whatever way you want to frame it. You could go back to 2021, where they spent up to the luxury tax, and they tried to go as far as they could to compete in that season. That's why when we talk about that year, despite them losing in Game 6 of the ALCS, does anyone sit here and say they should have done more at the deadline? No, we go, hey, for what that year was, you should have spent up to the deadline. Where we question you is when you look at 2022, you barely went over the luxury tax, made the stupid mistake of staying over it. But when you go over the luxury tax, you should go way above it. That means you're trying to win a championship. Or the following year in 2023, where you set a hard cap at $225 million, $9 million below the luxury tax for a team in the Red Sox last year that showed out in the month of July behind Justin Turner and all these guys. They put in the effort to be invested in. You set a hard cap $9 million below. Or even this year, where you're at 224 right now currently, 13 million below the luxury tax. Why can't you spend 13 million more? Why couldn't you have gone and got another depth arm for this rotation, even in spring training, so that you wouldn't be in this spot?
And Tyler, I would submit to you that that number that they are below this year is actually deceiving. Because
100%.
They signed Bayo and they signed Rafaela after the season started, to which inflated their luxury tax number. And frankly, artificially so.
It should be 209. That's the number without them.
So let me start here because I want to read some of these comments. I want our listeners to hear them as well if they haven't read the story. Again, this is the Financial Times. This is Henry's, one of the comments that's getting a great deal of attention. I'm going to read some others to you. But this first one, and I want your reaction, Tyler. Quote, because fans expect championships almost annually, they easily become frustrated and are not going to buy into what the odds actually are, 1 in 20 or 1 in 30, end quote. Okay, so again, he's saying that the odds on winning a championship annually are 1 in 20 or 1 in 30, and because fans expect championships, they easily become frustrated and not going to buy into what the odds are. True or false?
False. Based on the money you spend alone, you're immediately in a different stratosphere. You have financial limits that arguably outside of the top 10, other teams can't reach, and you've shown the ability to push even farther into a space that really 5 or 6 teams can go. So you already have the pockets and the ability without going over the luxury tax here. This isn't $60 million like you tell the Rays or the Guardians that they have to live with. That makes no sense. You're playing with way more keys to doors, way more tools in the tool belt than these other clubs and franchises have. You're just choosing not to use all of them, and that's not to say they're not spending over $200 million. We see that. Spend all the way up into the tax. Why could you do that in 2021, but you can't do that now? Okay,
so here's the other thing that I will say about this comment. It's not 1 in 20. And the issue is not that fans expect a championship every year. I mean, on some level, they want a championship every year, but the average fan knows that that's not realistic. Okay? The average fan knows that. Right out of the gate, first of all, we can eliminate 15, maybe 20 teams from winning the World Series. The problem is that the Red Sox are now one of those teams. Nobody picked the Red Sox to win this year. And the Red Sox should never go into a season where they don't have a chance to make the playoffs and make a run. Now, John Henry and the Red Sox may disagree that the Red Sox don't have a chance this year. There were people there that told me before the season started, we think the media characterization of the team is inaccurate. We think we're better than what some of the numbers and what some of the media is saying. Fine, whatever. Proof is in the pudding. They have finished last 3 of the last 4 years, and they have been basically uncompetitive in the division. Okay, now they've been close to 500. It's not just about winning a championship every year. It's about putting a representative team on the field that reflects what baseball means to the market. Now, maybe baseball doesn't mean what it used to. I would love to hear the Red Sox thoughts on that. Like one of the business stories I would love to hear or read is someone interviewing the Red Sox about have they had to alter the way they do business because the sport and the team aren't as popular as they used to be. I would love to find that out. I think that is something the Red Sox should address.
From a bottom line standpoint, I think that would probably be the direct correlation because at the end of the day, the bottom line stands out again and again for them.
Okay, now this is there are other parts of this story I want to read, but let me take a couple of calls because some people are already on the line. We'll kick it off with Christian in New Hampshire. Christian, go ahead.
Yeah. So I was born in '03. I'm young. I've been lucky enough to be around for 4 Sox championships, 3 that I can remember. And Henry is obviously a big part of that. But, I mean, how tone deaf can he be with these comments? You know, the way the team has been ran since 2018 has been pretty pathetic. Trading bets, not going over the tax. Way kind of the prices have gone up at Fenway since then. And to me, there's kind of no surprise that he gives this interview to the Financial Times, which conveniently has a monthly subscription available for $75 a month.
Yeah.
Thanks. That's all I got.
And so, Christian, I think you can read this story for $1, though. Okay. And the other thing is, I always get a little agitated when people say, the ticket prices at Fenway Park are high. They are. They are. If the team were good, no one would complain. Okay. It's the product. And you can watch the games on TV if you care, but don't want to pay for the tickets. No one's watching the games on TV either. And I come back to the same thing. If fans throughout the sport, if the reality of the odds of winning a championship are 1 in 20 or 1 in 30, then why are other teams spending money? So it's because they're still putting a product on the field. And the Yankees haven't won a World Series in a while. They've won one since 2000.
Yeah.
No, since 2000, they've won one. Okay, they've won one title. Have they finished last? Have they finished with losing records? Like, that has not happened there. So the issue isn't just the championships. It's also the absence of what fans in Boston would call a representative product. So to me, let's not mix up the two. There were two different arguments here. If this was all about we've been through you haven't won a championship in 86 years. And at that time, it was legit. This is not solely about winning a championship. It's about putting a representative product out there. Quickly, Ray and Revere. Ray, go ahead.
Tony, I think you framed it well. I would actually broaden it to say you should be competing to win every year in this market. You just mentioned the Yankees. I don't think they've had a losing record this century, Tony. Okay? There's no question that the Yankees will be trying to win or at least put the best possible product on the field every year. It's the same thing with the Dodgers. That's what the market expects. That's what we pay for. But John Henry's decoupled from the big market teams, Tony. After 2018, he no longer feels it's worth this investment. And the luxury tax is an artificial boundary. The Dodgers and the Yankees are north of $300 million right now. Okay? That's the going rate. And there was a time when we spent dollar for dollar with the Yankees, and we're better than them.
Okay, so Ray,
Thank you, Tom.
I'm going to let you go because that last point to me is one that bears repeating. There was a time where the Red Sox spent, under this ownership, dollar for dollar with the Yankees and the Dodgers and the big teams. I want to go a little further with that point when we come back, so don't go anywhere. Tyler Milliken's here on a Roundtable Friday. And let me tell you, by the way, that if you want to talk baseball, you're going to have select times to do it. Obviously, today's the end of the week. It's Friday. But next week's going to be similar. We did not have a show last night because the Celtics opened the NBA Finals. And frankly, the Celtics deserve the extra coverage. We're doing extra basketball hours or Celtics hours leading into the games. We are the rights holder of the Celtics, and they warrant it. And the Red Sox don't. I don't know any other way to say that. Right now, the Celtics are more worthy of our time and yours by a mile. Miles, not a mile. Thousands, millions of miles than the Red Sox are. So we're not going to have 5 shows next week. On game nights, there will be no baseball hour during the NBA Finals, is basically what it comes down to. Okay? Which, again, is fine. I have no issue with that whatsoever. But if you want to talk baseball, you're going to have to do it on the nights where we are here. So we'll do more when we come back, because I do want to flesh out this topic further. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Baseball Hour with Tony Maz.
Hey, it's Maz from Bigelow.
I think we're also aiming to be as competitive as we possibly can. I've talked about not being willing to sacrifice the long-term outlook, for short-term gains necessarily, because I think at times that can kind of fly in the face of building longer-term organizational health.
Craig, I think fans want to know, do you believe this is a playoff team?
I think it's kind of foolish to make predictions like that. I think this is going to be a very competitive team. I think it's going to be a team that is going to that's going to see its players take a meaningful step forward. And I think there's a really exciting young core of players that we are really, really excited about, and I think that fans are going to fall in love with.
Which again is probably a smart way to answer it, but if he thought the answer was yes, he would have said yes. So in this story in the Financial Times, let me just tell you, some of it's a very long story. So I'd love to read more excerpts for you. Unfortunately, this is just a 1 hour show. So I'm going to have to paraphrase a little of it or summarize a little of it. But basically, there's a section of this story that starts at the beginning of November when John Henry, representing SSG, which is one of the divisions of the Fenway Sports Group. I'm trying to find the actual name of SSG because I can't remember it now. But in any case, SSG is the group that negotiated with the PGA to buy a stake in the PGA Tour. So at the beginning of November, Henry is sitting with the PGA Tour players. There's a group of players on a sort of an executive board who have the right to approve or reject investors. That group includes Tiger Woods. So Tiger Woods is sitting with John Henry and a bunch of other people. Rory McIlroy's in there. Tom Werner's in there. Sam Kennedy's in there. And they're having this discussion about what they want the future of golf to be, what they want the future of the PGA to be. And now I'll read to you from the story. Despite his reputation, Henry was anything but reticent that morning. Quote, John probably repeated 10 times, we want to be aligned with the players. One person who was present told me, and again, this is the writer now saying told me. It left a good impression with the golfers, and SSG went back to their offices to polish the finer points of their proposal. So again, the line by Henry, we want to be aligned with the players, meaning the golfers. This spring, Rafael Devers sat out there and complained about ownership basically not being aligned with the players. Now, this is the question that everybody has. And when I say not aligned with the players, not in touch with the fact that the team wants to win. Here's what we want. Here's what we need. You're not giving us what we need anymore. They weren't on the same page. So this is what people's complaints are, that while Henry is pursuing the PGA and wooing the PGA and whispering sweet nothings and telling them what they want, he's not doing the same for his baseball team anymore, and he did that at the beginning. Now, the story goes on, and it points this out. On December 9th, Ohtani announced that he had inked a 10-year deal worth $700 million with the Dodgers. The Red Sox, the author pointed out, had the ability to go out and make a big splash on the market. The free-spending Dodgers swiftly followed up by signing another coveted Japanese star, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. The Red Sox had yet to pick up a pen. The problem wasn't specifically missing out on Ohtani or Yamamoto, but what fans were beginning to perceive as a downward trend. And then this paragraph speaks to what Ray and Revere said in the last segment. In over 2 decades of ownership, Henry and his co-owners had refurbished Fenway Park, won 4 rings, and invested $120 million in charitable works in Greater New England. But to fans, the team appeared unwilling to keep pace and MLB player contracts. In every one of the Henry-era World Series wins, Red Sox payroll had ranked between first and third highest in MLB. Okay, so that line. In the Red Sox four World Series years, they ranked in the top 3 in payroll, all 4. Okay? Tyler, I am going to give you where the Red Sox have ranked in payroll under John Henry. Starting in 2003, so we only get the data from 03 on. Second, fourth, Second, 11th in 2011, which is odd because they were loaded that year. So that might have been luxury tax manipulation. They might have fudged the numbers that year. Okay. But anyway.
What they have them for 2012?
Second. Third and 13. Then picking up again in 14. Fifth, third. Fifth, sixth. First and first in 18 and 19. And then eighth, sixth, and fifth in 2020, 2021, and 2022. I would tell you that basically almost to every year they've been in the top 5 or 6. The last 2 years they've been 12th and 13th. And they have finished 78 and 84. This year they don't look to have a sniff at making the playoffs or winning anything. So you tell me, are people pissed that they didn't go all in, or that they're not making the same commitment they've made in the past?
It's not.
You follow me?
Yeah, it's not the same commitment. And I think that's kind of what I was trying to illustrate earlier. When you even go back to 2021, as you mentioned, and that number's there of them at least pushing things as far as they could go. At the end of the day, the Yankees have been over the luxury tax for 3 years. Say what you will about that team. They were under the luxury tax in 2021. Like, they were still operating under these similar rulings in this similar space that the Red Sox were at this time. The Dodgers were under the luxury tax, and, the last 4 years or so, they lucked out in 2020 after giving Mookie that money because David Price didn't play in the COVID season. You just have to look around. The Phillies have been over the luxury tax 3 straight seasons. The Red Sox only were going over 2, and since then have went over once and barely went over. These teams aren't barely going over the line. They're going well beyond the line. The Yankees saw what Steve Cohen was doing. It was like, hey, I want in. I need to get to that level. We've seen the Dodgers, they're manipulating things a little bit here, but they're still significantly over. Say what you will about the Yankees. I know recently their owner, Hal Steinbrenner, and said, we're planning to cut payroll. We can't exist like this forever. That's understandable when you are so far above that line, when you're approaching $300 million regularly. The Red Sox, they're not even approaching the luxury tax right now. You're still $13 million right now, technically below, but as we talked about with those extensions, it's even more, and you are setting hard caps below. That's just so different than the way these other top teams are acting. Your behavior does not match them.
So, again, here's what I would like to know. Why did they used to be basically top 5 and now they're middle of the pack? What changed?
That's what we're all asking.
So what changed? And to me, this is something that if I were the Red Sox, I would address publicly. Like, if you've lost revenues, significant revenues because TV ratings are down, or whatever it is, if there's a business explanation, I'm not telling you people are going to like it. They're never going to like it. What they don't want to hear, though, is that you had to put money into the PGA Tour.
Of course not.
Okay, so if that's the reason, and that's not why, that's why they're not saying it, I almost I understand that, but that's what people believe. Let me just get this call in quickly. Jordan in Medford. Jordan, what do you got?
Hey, thank you. First time, long time. Thank you for the nips for trips, Tyler. But to my point, this John Henry guy, we got to do something about him if he won't sell. I say we get a GoFundMe together and hire someone to get him out of here. Paint his house if you catch my drift, because he stinks. He doesn't care. And we as 162 guys deserve better. I'll hang up and listen.
Okay, so Jordan, here's the one thing I'll say about this, and I've said this in the past. I saw ownership with the Red Sox for a long time that didn't really care. These guys have spent, for the large majority of the time they've been here, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. I'm not totally ready to quit yet because I'm not convinced the next person will be any better.
There's levels to this, right? You could find someone who's just not even willing to spend to this level, or say what you will about Steve Cohen. I know everyone was drooling and couldn't stop talking about him. Look at where the Mets are right now. They have completely fallen through as an organization. They got David Stearns there, who should be able to get them back on track, but they were so blindly spending money and kind of investing in a lot of poor moves, signing older pitchers and Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer. Look what happened to them. And that was just purely because Steve Cohen wanted to put his wallet on the table and say, hey, you guys, all the owners don't like me. They don't like the Steve Cohen tax. Watch what I'm about to cook up. It was absolute garbage he cooked up. It was nothing. And now they're in this spot where they're going to have a major sell-off. Alonso, consider things with Lindor and these, other avenues for them to get by. It's just, it is a slippery slope. What scares me about John Henry here, though, is that when you identify these changes and to your face he is telling you there is no changes, nothing is different here, these have been my philosophies, that's scary. This is a man who no longer feels shame. The way this team is being talked about the last couple years, specifically this year, where, you look at Fenway Park, I have never seen Fenway that empty during games. And, you can sell tickets and make the numbers match. Look at the ballpark during the games. Look at the way Chris Sale got treated just a few days ago. That's a 2018 World Series champion. The crowd is so full of tourists that between that and cheering for Ozzie Albies, who hit the game-winning home run off of you guys in the 6th inning, all that happened. The fans are cheering for the Braves homering at Fenway Park. If I told you that was the reality even 6 or 7 years ago, you'd say I was out of my mind. But that doesn't even bring shame to John Henry at this point. That is so dangerous because there's nothing this team can do right now. There's nothing we can say that is going to move him.
If you want Henry to sell, and a lot of you do, he was actually asked the question in this story. We'll tell you what he said when we come back. Don't go anywhere. We'll continue with your thoughts on the John Henry comments. And I know Tyler has some thoughts on the Red Sox pitching in the system. One guy in particular. We'll get to that too when we come back.
Sports Hub headlines.
Celtics took Game 1 of the NBA Finals last night over the Dallas Mavericks, 107-89. Jaylen Brown led the way with 22 points. Kristaps Porzingis added 20 of his own in his return to the lineup. Game 2 of that series Sunday night at TD Garden. The Red Sox were 14-2 winners last night in Chicago against the White Sox. They will look to hand the White Sox their 15th consecutive loss tonight. Not good. Cooper Criswell gets the start for the Sox, first pitch at 8:10. The NFL has confirmed this season's preseason dates and times for all 32 teams, including the New England Patriots. One of the 3 for the Pats will be in prime time. The Patriots will play a nationally televised game against the Washington Commanders at Commanders Field in Landover, Maryland on Sunday, August 25th at 8 p.m. The 2 remaining games on the schedule include matchups against the Carolina Panthers on August 8th at 7 p.m. and the Philadelphia Eagles on August 15th at 7 p.m. as well. And Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers is tomorrow night in Sunrise, Florida. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Patriot Place. Don't miss a minute of the playoff action this week at the Harp, Citizen Crust, 6-String Grill and Stage, Bar Louie, and Scorpion Bar at Patriot Place. Patriot Place, shop, dine, enjoy the playoffs. I'm Kevin Majori on Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports.
ERA in the majors. Tanner's 1-2 and struck him out. He's off to the races. Swung on and missed for strike 3. 2 Ks at the outset for Tanner. Swing and a miss here by Vaughn, and he strikes out. And a cut and a miss to put him away. Right back with that filthy slider. 2-2 and kind of a choppy swing and a miss. He fooled him. That's going to be in there. Strike 3. He froze him. 7 strikeouts for Tanner Houck.
Maybe the single biggest development on the team this year, Tanner Houck. 4th in the American League in pitching. Among pitchers, he's 4th in WAR. If you buy into that, I know Tyler does. Maz. Okay, but he has been Tanner Houck has pitched like one of the 5 best pitchers in the game, really. So that should not be overlooked. We'll get to more on the pitching in a minute. I know Tyler has some thoughts on that, but let's take a couple of calls because I do want to get to your thoughts on. On these comments and where the Red Sox are relative to other teams in terms of payroll, John Henry's comments and what have you. Greg in New York. Greg, go ahead.
Hey, Tony. Happy Friday. You were asking this last week as well, I believe, about what's different or what's changed since their last World Series. And the only thing I can think of, and I want to ask if you thought the same, is if their investor base, the Fenway Sports Group, has broadened out and become bigger so that maybe it's less of a priority for a lot of people that have invested with them, and they just want an asset that has a predictable coupon, so to speak. And I got to say one other thing. I was a fan from 1976.
Greg, I'm sorry. I'm going to let you go. All right, just because I have other people on the phone, don't take it personally. But what the shift is, yeah. Look, they have their hands in more cookie jars. There are more people involved. Absolutely, could be a factor. I also wanted to land the plane because I said to you earlier, John Henry was asked about selling the team. Because a lot of people say Henry's got to sell. Henry's got to sell. The author of this story, again, whose name was Sarah Germano. Okay, Sarah Germano wrote the story. She says, I decided to ask him point blank, would you ever sell the Red Sox, Liverpool, or the Penguins? Henry wrote, because he answered her questions via email as he often does. Quote, my wife and I live and work in Boston. We are committed to the city, the region. So the Sox are not going to come up for sale. We generally don't sell assets. Okay?
What a way to frame it.
So, yeah, exactly. Good way to frame it. So the idea that he would sell seems preposterous. I want to read you one final comment at the end from Tom Werner, just as an aside. But let's take a couple more calls. Tyler, Ralph and Cranston. Ralph, what do you got?
Hey, Maz, look, I never thought like anyone else the Yankees would be this good right now, especially without Cole. They're phenomenal. And they're not – this isn't just a good start. The Red Sox and Yankees have a perfect – now, if I'm the Yankees, I'm looking for a reliever who can close games. And they need someone to play first and third good defense. Red Sox have both to offer.
Ralph, get to the point. Go ahead.
Jansen, and don't laugh, Bobby Dahlbeck. See what prospects they want. Yankees are loaded with prospects. Yankees make that move, Daz.
I'm going to let you go. Bobby Dahlbeck's not going to get you a Rosenbach. Okay? He's not going to get you a Rosenbach, and I'm not sure how much value Jansen really has either. Jay in Salem. Jay, go ahead.
All right, something for both of you, and if time, a third thing. Look, so Tony, what changed is a very simple thing, is a core. The team doesn't have a core of players that they can build around. It doesn't have the Pedroias, the Lesters, like they did back in the day. It doesn't have the Pedros. It doesn't have the Ortizes. Tyler, you're a genius. The 21 season, it was a hindsight's 2020 when they got to the ALCS, which was they needed arms and a first baseman. At the trade deadline, we're all saying first base. They got Schwarber. He was a killer. We wish we kept him, but he wasn't that one extra piece that they needed when it came down to the game. As far as the outline, Tony, you said this one time, and it stuck with me, and that's water finds its level. I had no idea that you could apply that to the ownership groups as well.
Okay, so look, I'm not the one who came up with that phrase. I think that's an old one.
Take credit for it, Maz, please.
I'm old, but I'm not that old. So the frustrating part is not that the Red Sox aren't winning a championship every year. That comment by Henry went up my ass. Okay, because that's not what the issue is. The issue is you haven't been competitive for 5 of the last 6 years or 4 of the last 5. 2021 was a successful season. We'll all acknowledge that. The other years have not been, and they haven't been close, many of them. So that's what the issue is. Meanwhile, again, you have dropped in payroll rank to the middle of the pack. You're now a mid-market team for all intents and purposes, at least based on spending.
Just to go back, Alex Speier, and I was trying to find this column as we were talking about it, and he kind of put it perfectly. During the 22-season tenure of the current Red Sox ownership group, there's only been one period in which they lowered payroll and or held steady in back-to-back years. Obviously, we were seeing it this year for the first time. The other time was 2012 and 2013, when they offloaded all those mega deals, and in 2013 spent right up until the tax, while trying to fill their roster with a lot of veterans that could give the team the highest ceiling it could, but not lock them in this financial hell and make it hard for them to go, especially when the core was in a tough spot where it was transitioning, and there were a lot of questions whether those guys would be able to be a part of another World Series caliber core. That's it. That's all you're looking for there. You're looking at history. The only other time they did this is when they made one of the craziest trades in baseball history, still arguably the craziest trade, and the Dodgers completely bailed you out. Now it's a much different circumstance where you're not making one of those significant kind of crazy deals. And you go back to that 2013 team when they spent all the way they possibly could in a bridge year to make that team as strong as it could be. They don't care to do that right now. They are not interested in taking it that far. You don't sacrifice anything by adding a couple veterans that add depth to this year's team or last year's team to let them compete at the trade deadline. That's the gap right there. Now, you may say, well, hey, that's not that big of a deal. It's only 10, 12 million. That's the difference between 78 wins and 82 wins. That's the difference between maybe sneaking in the playoffs like the Diamondbacks did a couple years ago, because that Red Sox team last year, how many wins were they on pace for when they got to September? 85. That's how pathetic they were in that final month of the season. That was an 85 win pace. If you didn't completely derail that team mentally for really, can you say 3 years in a row, 2023, 2022, Kyle Schwarber bailed your ass out when you were sulking in 2021 and basically had given up on the world and barely snuck in on the last day of the season. You can push a bit more, and that's what the Red Sox should do. It's understandable to work in constraints. I think you could even tell people the current core you have, you may not believe in it, to go and try to win a World Series. All right, well, spend within those limits as much as you can. Even that's too much these days.
Okay, now look, I know I this to me is is the biggest story with the Red Sox right now is how they are run as a business and what it means for the fans. Where's this all going? Is this a permanent change, et cetera, et cetera? But I do want to get to a couple of other things because I know you feel strongly about them, Tyler. We played Tanner Houck here a minute ago, and Houck is a tremendous turnaround. I have a little bit of a bug up my ass about something I read today with regard to Tanner Houck, which I'll get to in a minute. But the prospect rankings from Baseball America came out this week. The Red Sox still have 3 prospects in basically the top 50, call it, which is Kyle Teal, Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer. But they now also have a pitcher that has cracked the top 60. Tell people about him.
Yeah, his name's Luis Perales. And for people that did keep up with the farm system, he was often dubbed the last couple years as the guy with the highest ceiling. But like a lot of pitching prospects we've seen with good stuff in recent years in the farm system, they just weren't able to tap into it. They weren't able to elevate him, tweak the arsenal, do whatever you had to do. Outside of Brian Bayo, he was kind of the standout. And we talk about Brian Bayo and the last time they had a pitching prospect this high. Now, Bayo, by the end of 2022, September, had gotten to roughly 20, right? And that was at a time where Brian Bayo, I know last year people were always like, oh, he's not a rookie. Well, he had spent so much time in the big leagues that first season that he lost his eligibility. But Luis Perales right now, he's ahead of where Brian Bayo was at this time. And, Brian Bayo was so talented, they were willing to extend him, obviously, in spring training. Right now, Perales, he's 21 years old. He just got promoted to Double-A after absolutely carving up High A to levels that were even better than what Bayo was doing if you look underneath the hood. It was a 3.42 ERA, 197 FIP in 26 and a third innings, striking out 15 per 9 and walking 3 per 9. Now, you go back last year, striking out 10 per 9, walking 5 per 9. Smaller frame, 6'1", 160. That's more of those comparables you can kind of make to Bayo, except Perales has this big fastball. Now, you look at how he's...
So say that again. Wait a minute. His walks have been cut almost in half, and his strikeouts have gone up from last year to this year.
Yeah, his walks are basically, call it 5 per 9 last year. It's 3.4 this year. The K rate's up 5 full strikeouts per 9. And part of that was because he was dominating down at high A.
And he's at double A now.
Yep, where he just made his debut and absolutely shoved 7 Ks in 5 innings. I know it doesn't scratch that itch of working deeper into games, but in the minor leagues, it's a little bit differently, and they're doing something new. At double A and high A for the Red Sox right now, they're operating with a 6-man rotation. Now, some people may be like, whoa, this is really going against the workhorse idea. That's not it. They're actually trying to get an extra day for these starters to work more with them in between starts, to tweak stuff and maybe, adjust their arsenal. His fastball right now, it's jumped 2 miles per hour this year, and now it's 94, 98. Last year, he was mostly a fastball and slider guy who sprinkled in his changeup, here and there to kind of get by, along with his cutter. Now, he's upped his cutter usage by nearly 25%. The changeup is up 13%. He had a slider last year that was considered his best secondary. He's cut that down by 5%. The changeup has taken a step forward. In his fastball usage, it's down 34%.
Okay, so Luis Perales, we should take seriously?
Extremely. I think if you're talking Brian Bayo, he's that same tier prospect, but a year younger right now.
Okay, because I read a thing on him recently on SoxProspects.com. Again, most people know the website. That says he projects as a end of rotation or reliever, but that was before this latest jump?
Yes, and Ian Kundle recently put out a great article on Sox Prospects detailing how much he jumped, just talking to other scouts about where they see him now. Consensus top 100 prospect. He's almost a top 50 guy right now. And I think this is where you're seeing the tweaking, even down to the fastball that we've seen in the big leagues, where they're having him do different things. We didn't see this kind of tweaking and having this kind of impact before that. Now, Perales, it's taken, it's June 7th right now. In roughly 2 months, he went from a guy who had this potential he couldn't tap into to a top 60 prospect in the game.
Okay. I'll believe it when I see it, Tyler.
That's pitching infrastructure, though.
All due respect, I'll believe it when I see it. I don't take the cheese on every pitcher that pops for a short period of time. I'll allow it.
Just, hey, for everyone.
Take it under advisement.
Maz, I'm about to get you going. You ready?
Objection sustained. Go ahead.
You know who he was technically signed under? Dave Dombrowski. Now, I'm going to sit here and tell you, I'm not giving any credit to Dave Dombrowski. He was not a top international signing. Dombrowski didn't know who he was. That's the reality of the entire situation. That's not Dave Dombrowski respect. I wouldn't give Heim that credit. I wouldn't give Craig Breslow that credit.
Okay.
There you go.
Jimmy, don't go anywhere yet. I have to do this quickly. Time for the Between the Lines.
That was my fault. I hit the wrong music.
It's right. It's just time for the Between the Lines baseball report brought to you by Corona, the official cerveza of Major League Baseball, with what to watch out for during this weekend's games. Enjoy the finer life of sports with Corona. Must be 21 plus. Relax responsibly. Corona Extra beer imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois. Here's what I'll tell you about the weekend. You got to win 3 out of 4 from the White Sox, and here's why. At a minimum, you should sweep.
Keep in mind, their manager, Pedro Rafal, Ken Rosenthal put out an article about 48 hours ago saying he's going to be fired at any moment. It is an absolute disaster in that clubhouse, besides them losing the most games in a row in franchise history right now.
What is it, 15 right now? 14?
14.
Going for 15 tonight. Don't be the team that ends that streak. Tyler, thank you as always.
It was a blast.
Okay, to those of you who joined, and for those of you who are on the phone that we couldn't get to, my apologies. Kevin Majori will have